Speaking truth and power, unlocking minds, one day at a time, day at a time. Speaking truth and power, unlocking minds, one day at a time, day at a time. Truth of the matter is that truth really matters, yeah. Truth of the matter is that truth really matters, yeah. In the beginning, I was back and forth like Batman, lacking wisdom, no direction for proper decisions. I heard my bro had a show, so I started to listen. Truth of the matter, ain't no comparing the competition. The kid feeling blessed, cause it's clear as Windex. After talking with Dex, I know just where to step. I know the pack gon' be narrow, but my eyes on the sparrow. And the truth of the matter is that truth really matters. Truth of the matter, that truth really matters. Hey, truth of the matter.
Hey, welcome to Truth of the Matter, where we are having transparent conversations dealing with today's issues and bringing solutions to navigate your world. I am your host, Dexter Peggins. Listen, today's show, it should be an interesting one. It is entitled Loose Hips and Failed Relationships. But before we get started, allow me to share the quote of the day. And listen, this one is directed towards my procrastinators. Now, if you're a procrastinator, I am not picking on you because I myself sometimes fall up under this scope of procrastination. But today's quote is simply this: it all starts with a decision. It all starts with a decision. Listen, this week, there has been a lot of discussion around my boy Zion Williams. If you haven't heard, he and the young lady that he has been romantically involved with, they have announced that they are expecting a child. As a matter of fact, they did a gender reveal and they announced that they're having a little girl. And so allow me to congratulate both of you on the announcement of your soon to be little girl coming into this world. Now, nevertheless, there have been a number of people insinuating that because of his perceived naivety, that he may have been finessed in this situation. It has also come to light that our brother Zion has a preference for a certain type of woman, a woman that works in a certain type of industry, with numerous women coming to the forefront saying that he has also been sexually involved with them unprotected, with even one of them saying that she hopes that she herself is pregnant. And so, needless to say, they have been dragging Brother Zion this week. It's almost to the point that I'm afraid to wear my black and gray Zion Jumpmans because I don't want to get clowned for wearing them. But with all jokes aside, allow me to say this is that Brother Zion, whether we like it or not, he has exercised one of the most powerful gifts that God has given any of us, and that's the power of choice. As a matter of fact, all parties involved have exercised this same power, and only time will reveal the true cost of their decisions. One of the things I think that has come from this situation is an opportunity to have a conversation, a conversation about something that I believe is commonly overlooked, and that's the conversation of sexual responsibility. As I've mentioned before, I I lead a nonprofit organization that provides mentorship services to at-risk youth. And when we're facilitating our groups, one of the conversations or one of the things that commonly come up is this topic of sex. Now, as you imagine, working with a group of pubescent teenage males, there's a lot of energy around this conversation. And I want to tell you that I hear some wild stuff. And so I want to tell you all is that if you think that our youth are not engaged or experiencing sex, you were sadly mistaken. And so this conversation is more important than you may realize. Now, as I mentioned, when this conversation of sex comes up, there is a lot of energy around it, and I hear some crazy stuff. But the sad thing is that not so much the youth. The sad thing is that I actually know a lot of adult males who conversation is similar to that of those teenage males that I work with, which means that we have not progressed in this area of maturity concerning this topic. And so, my aim today uh, on this subject is not to condemn anyone concerning their decisions as consenting adults. My hope today is mainly to initiate a conversation that may lead you to ask yourself, am I sexually irresponsible? And is this irresponsibility serving as the reason why I may not have the relationship that I want? Now, I know that this topic of sexual responsibility is pretty broad. I imagine that we have all heard stories about people intentionally spreading STDs, which speaks to the need for having a discussion about sexual history and status. I even understand that there's a discussion that needs to be had pertaining to things such as sexual orientation. All of these things lend themselves to the topic of sexual responsibility. However, on today, I'm going to be speaking on what I see as a random disregard for who you impregnate or a lack of concern as it pertains to who impregnates you. Now, today, ladies, I'm going to start with you. Uh, Listen, I know a lot of good women in this world. I know a lot of good women who desire to be in a relationship. And what I would say to them, and what I've acknowledged, is that oftentimes the only reason why they are single is because they have multiple children by multiple men. And listen, I get it. It's 2023. We're not allowed to talk about stuff like this. This is taboo, or, we're supposed to overlook it and sweep it under the rug. But the reality is that we need to be honest. Men, we look at stuff like this. I'm a person who used to run the streets. And by the grace of God, I am saved, and I humbly get to call myself a minister of the gospel. And what I will tell you is that I've seen this dynamic play out both in the streets as well as in the church. And what I want to tell you is that we're not talking about it enough in either environment. And so, what I will start off by saying is that a man, as he's vetting a woman to whom he might want to be in a relationship with, he's going to ask himself, especially as he's looking at this single mother, he's going to ask himself a few questions. A few of those questions that he may ask himself, and once again, this is not an all-inclusive list, but just take it, assess it, and see if the shoe fits. But the first question that he's going to ask himself is, why is she a single mom? Now, there might be a reason, a myriad of reasons why this woman is a single mother. She could be a widow. Maybe things just didn't work between her and the father. Maybe she just had a baby at an early age. Another thing that this man is going to ask himself, he's going to ask himself, okay, how involved are those fathers? On some level, that man and that father, they are going to interact with each other. Now, I've seen this scenario work out pretty well before. So I don't want to make it sound like it's always a negative thing. I've seen it work out well where the men, they're there for the child. They have respect for one another. And in some instances, they actually become friendly with one another. But I've also seen it end up quite disastrously as well, where they were fighting with each other, and tragically, it has ended in death. And so I've seen, both ends of the spectrum. Another thing that that man is going to ask himself as he's identifying if he wants to be in a relationship with this single mom is, what type of men are those fathers? What this question does is that it gives the man the inclination of your decision making process. He's going to say, okay, man, she's attracted to a certain type of man. Maybe the man that she has previously demonstrated an interest in. Maybe he was the flashy type, but along with his flashiness, he's irresponsible. And what this does is that it gives that man an idea of some of the things that he can probably expect if he gets into a long term relationship with that woman. Another question, and I think that this is probably one of the most prevalent questions that man is going to ask himself is, what degree of influence will he be allowed to have in his home? Can this man discipline your children? One of the worst things that you can expect of a man is to expect him to lead his home without giving him the right to set order in his home. And I want you to think about that. And when you deny that man the opportunity to give order to those who are up under his roof, you're essentially tying his hand as it pertains to his ability to lead. And then what we have as a result of these questions, and based on the answers, what that man ends up doing is he determines that relationship is not worth the cost, especially if there's a lot of red flags. And so what end up happening is that man, he'll sleep with you, he's gonna enjoy the ride, but eventually those red flags, they're going to become so prevalent, so visible, that eventually that man is going to be up and out of there. Now, fellas, there are women, let's be honest, there are women who have agendas for getting pregnant. I opened up talking about Zion Williams, and truthfully, we do not know the circumstances of that pregnancy. As I mentioned earlier, there are some people who suspect it's about money, a finesse play, but who knows? Now, I know that most of us, we're not multimillionaires. We don't have a signature shoe line, but that does not mean that you cannot fall victim to some of the same pitfalls that a lot of these athletes experience. As an average 9-to-5 brother, you can be a target. Listen, there are women who want babies, but they don't want the man. But that does not eliminate or excuse the responsibilities that will fall to you if you get this woman pregnant. There are quite a few women out here in the world who have kids to address their own insecurities. Maybe they didn't feel loved. And so what this child does is serves as an emotional blanket to fulfill that void that they might have in their own soul. There are women who may want to trap you, and that child, in essence, becomes that bond that keeps you all connected for 18 years. Maybe she sees your potential and she's attracted to your potential. And so having that child ensures that she's connected to you. But maybe it has absolutely nothing to do with materials. Maybe she just really likes you and she wants you to be in her life. And so having that child ensures that you will be around for the foreseeable future. Now, what I'll tell you all is this, I laid out some pretty extreme circumstances, but I don't want you to think that this is doom and gloom, because it's not. I actually know more responsible men than irresponsible ones. And I actually know more quality women who are about their business and not really trying to get caught up in that dumb stuff. But what I will tell you is there are people in this world who get caught up in these type of scenarios all the time. And I want you to understand the full scope of this transaction that we call sex, because that's exactly what it is. It's a transaction. Because there are a lot of things that go on beyond the point of intimacy. For some people, this transaction is about power. It's about asserting dominance. Maybe for some people, it's about a false sense of love. And for others, maybe it's just finances, and once again, that whole thing that people are suggesting with Brother Zion right now. Maybe it's, hey, after I have this child, that's a guaranteed way that money's going to come in. But what it all boils down to is that if we're unwilling to have this conversation and to be truthful, this unwillingness to have this conversation can lead to some very scary revelations in the future. So with that being said, we're going to pause for a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
There is a prevailing crisis that has crippled families and communities for decades. This crisis has a direct association to higher crime rates, increase poverty, and cost the nation millions of dollars annually. The crisis is the epidemic of fatherlessness. What would the world look like if fathers were not only physically present, but emotionally available as well? What would the conversation between the repentant father and the dejected son sound like? Recognizing that sons, both young and old, need to hear a heart of a father serves as the motivation for this literary work. This book is for those who need wisdom and guidance, never had those necessary moments with their father, or wish they had more moments with their father. Through the affirmation of a father's love, this book will traverse the difficult path from disappointment to hope, and from alienation to reconciliation.
That was the commercial for my book, Dear Son, The Words of a Father to the Heart of a Son. It is available on Amazon as well as my website, dexterpegansjr.com. Listen, Father's Day is right around the corner, and I think that will be a great gift for the men in your lives. And also, hey, listen, it's not just for men only. I know several women who've told me that they've found great value from reading that book. Ultimately, what it speaks to is it speaks to the void that a lot of men carry as a result of not having that father relationship. And a lot of those same voids are in women as well. And so, once again, it's not just exclusive to men only. I believe what will serve to do is address those father wounds that a lot of people are experiencing. So, do me a favor, get a copy of that book, and I believe that it will be of great benefit to you and to those that you love. So, listen, we're jumping right back into today's topic: loose hips and failed relationships. Ladies, I'm going to switch hats for a minute. I'm gonna switch hats from show host to the hat of an uncle. I have several nieces who are at that age in life right now where they get the more direct version of Unc. You know, he's cool, but he's starting to be more direct as it pertains to matters of relationships. And so I'm going to take on that uncle posture right now. And what I'll tell you is this: listen, 10 out of 10 times, if a man is careless with his seed, there are some red flags that you might not see just yet. I'm going to say that again: 10 out of 10 times, if a man is careless with his seed, there are some red flags that you might not see just yet. Understand this, that if he arbitrarily drops off his seed, meaning if he's just out there willy-nilly with it, and y'all aren't planning for a family, you have to understand that this is a power play. It's about asserting dominance by saying that I'm making a decision that can alter the course of your life. And in essence, he can leave you with that responsibility that he may or may not be willing to stay there for himself. And that's a dynamic that you have to consider when engaging in these acts of sex. Listen, gentlemen, I want you to think about the significance of what it is I'm saying concerning guarding your seed. If you're out here randomly shooting up the club, as the young people say, there are a few outcomes that you can probably expect. At best, you are now in position where you have to overextend your resources. Think about it. In most instances, the court system, when you go before the judge in the family court, uh, and they're talking about child support, they are going to tax the man. Now, that man, if logical, a logical person will probably look at their circumstances and they will say, hey, realistically, I cannot afford to make this move. I can't afford to be having all of these extra kids just for the sake of having all these extra kids. However, as a result of what that judge determines, I want you to look at it this way. In essence, you're going to be stretching what may be a scarcity in your own home, and that scarcity being finances. Now you're asked to stretch that scarcity and provide in a whole different home. And so now you're divvying up what may already be a limitation in your own current situation. Another thing that I want you all to consider, and I mentioned this earlier. Matter of fact, let me start right here. I mentioned this earlier. When working with the young people, about the conversation of sex and when it comes up in our groups. And one of the things that I tell the young men that I work with all the time is I say, hey, look, man, you too broke to have sex. I don't even go spiritual right away. I don't even go spiritual first. I go practical. I don't tell them you're too broke to have a baby. I tell them you're too broke to have sex. And I'll be honest, you know, listen, guys and gals, there are a lot of people out here who are too broke to even consider sex because you're not factoring in the financial burden that comes along with having that child. Another possibility, gentlemen, as it pertains to being loose with your sperm, is this: while your child may have your DNA, there's no guarantee that they'll have your disposition as a result of your influence being regulated. And this is what I mean. If your child lives in another home, most likely they're living with their mother. There's nothing guaranteeing that you can have a say so in that home, especially if you and that woman don't have the best relationship. And a lot of times we as men, we assume that we can assert dominance or control someone else's household, but that's not the case. What you can do is you can make a suggestion and hope that that woman may be mature enough to adhere or implement what it is that you're asking, but she has the right to honor or dishonor what it is that you're saying because those children don't live in your home. And so as a result, your children may be exposed to things that you don't want them to be exposed to because they don't stay with you and they're not under the auspice of your direct leadership. And so they might be engaging other men, they might be coming into contact with God knows who, what, you know, and that's all because of this separation that exists between those homes. If you think about it, most recently, I think we all know about Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon got about 50 kids, about 48 different women, and I'm not going to drag Nick Cannon. It is what it is. But the reality is, I recall coming across an article where he said that he wishes that all of his children were up under his home. Why do you think that he wishes all of his children are up under his home? Well, I'll simply put it as this: because up under his own home, he gets to set the standard for his household. He gets to directly impact the day to day of his children by providing them guidance, literally putting them in the direction as a father that he believes that that they should go. But because they are dispersed, they become subject to different influences that he may or may not want them to be subject to. Another thing that I believe is necessary to highlight, and I believe that this may be the worst scenario of them all, and that is simply this, and this is for the irresponsible father that has no desire to be around or present in their child's life at all. You've created a life, and now that life questions their own value because the one who's supposed to affirm their value is not present. And I see that tragically more times than I wish I would see. More times than I care to admit. I see that. Ultimately, you have a lot of young people who begin to listen to the voices of people who have no real care or compassion for them. They begin to look to them for their own identity and their own inherent sense of value because the father is not there guiding them. Listen, as a father, as a male, you serve as the first gauge concerning your child's potential, especially if you have sons. A young boy will look to the father as his first measure of potential. He says, okay, as a man, this is what a man is supposed to do. And because I'm a male becoming a man, this now serves as my example of manhood. Even for the young daughter, you as a male or as the father, you are the one who is supposed to serve as the example of what she can expect or what she should be able to expect from the men that she involves herself with in the future. But because of your absence, you rob that child of that experience. And ultimately, you set the child on a course where they're looking and trying to snag bits and pieces of information from people who may not be positioned or have the ability to lead them in that capacity because they're not their fathers. Now, listen, I began this show talking about the gift of choice. When I talked about Zion and the women that he has been involved with, how they all exercise this gift of choice. And even if you think about it, the quote of today, that it all starts with the decision, that plays into this gift of choice that we all have. And I'm saying this right now because it's going to tie into this final thought. And the final thought is simply this: there are times when our choices reveal that the real liability is how we think. Life moves at the speed of decisions. And the reality is that some of our relationship decisions reveal that we need to slow down. And with that being said, this has been Truth of the Matter. Thank you for allowing me to share with you all. And I look forward to picking this back up with you all next week. Take care and God bless.
Speaking truth and power, unlocking minds, one day at a time, day at a time. Speaking truth and power, unlocking minds, one day at a time, day at a time. Truth of the matter is that truth really matters, yeah. Truth of the matter is that truth really matters, yeah. In the beginning, I was back and forth like badminton, lacking wisdom, no direction for proper decisions. I heard my bro had a show, so I started to listen. Truth of the matter, ain't no comparing the competition. The kid feeling blessed, cause it's clear as when Dex. After talking with Dex, I know just where to step. I know the path gon' be narrow, but my eyes on the sparrow. And the truth of the matter is that truth really matters. Truth of the matter, that truth really matters. Hey.